to the Career Management Podcast for Black women, where we unapologetically help you navigate your workplace crazy. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose Enuha, also known as the Trill MBA. Why? Because I'm the trillest MBA you will ever know. And every week, we are going to bring you the tips, tricks, and tactics you need to survive and thrive in the workplace. So if you like our content, subscribe, like, leave comments, let us know what workplace crazy you need help with. We got you. It really doesn't have to be that hard. As you'll learn in today's episode, where we are dropping gems, let's start the show. Welcome back to the show, guys. I am so excited to have you here today. If you ever wanted to work in sports, how many people want to work in sports? Oh my God. How many times do you hear people like, my dream job is to work for the NFL, the NBA, the National Baseball League? I guess I'm sure I'm messing it up because I'm not a sports person. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I love selling food and snacks and stuff. That's what I've done most of my career. But for those of you who want to work in sports and entertainment, I have a very special treat for you because I want you to understand that sure, there's the perks. You see all the people at the Super Bowl. And it's like, who are those people standing behind Beyonce? Like, could that be me? If you have that question, I have a very special guest in the studio via Riverside today. I'm so excited. I want you to meet Jasmine Lipford. Jasmine is a passionate strategic marketer. She's been leading marketing, programming, processes, businesses, making these brands money, building brands, changing brands for the better, repositioning, all the things that you do as a marketer. Jasmine has done it all across different industries. She's worked in advertising. She's worked in consumer packaged goods. She's worked in e-retail and now sports and entertainment. Currently, Jasmine serves as the Vice President of Marketing for the National Basketball Association. I know people, y'all. I know people. I can't get no tickets to no basketball game. Good. I know people. But let me tell you something. She is a recognized marketer for the NBA. She leads brand, fan engagement, social responsibility, all for the NBA G League. And I'm sure she'll tell us because she's also has an expanded role now and she's doing all the things. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? But before that, she worked at Coca-Cola where she led Powerade. And I was a witness to that firsthand because that's where we met each other. But her experience expands across all these industries and companies like Amazon and Anheuser-Busch. And she got started at Ogilvy Mather, refining her marketing skills in the agency world. I never want to be on the agency side. I've always been client side. So I give it to you. You've been on both sides, Jasmine, and I just don't know how you did it. But I do know because you are an amazing, brilliant, beautiful human being, how you've accomplished so much. And I'm very proud to know you. I'm very proud to call you friend. Jasmine Lipford, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm excited to be here. I'm in full friend. First of all, I'm flattered and almost halfway emotional, but I'm also in full friend mode, so I want to make fun of you for hyping me up. But here we are.
When have I never hyped you up, friend?
Like, I mean, you're that person. You're that friend. You're just like, girl, you got it. You're you. So when I need that boost, I know who to call for sure.
Because all my friends are baddies. Like, I just don't have a friend who's not out here killing the game. Whatever game they've chosen, they're killing it. And that's just who I hang out with. Like, those are my people.
I mean, the circle is circling, right? Yes. Like, everybody, you're doing your thing. Everybody's doing their thing. And it's not even that it's exclusive because, you know, we like to lift people up. But at the same time, it's just when you come to things with the right attitude, that's what your circle does.
That's what they do. So listen, we're going to start off the show with the question I'm going to be asking every guest this year, which is, tell me about yourself, like an interview. Give me your car statement, girl. No.
2-minute elevator pitch.
Yes. But I just want people to understand, like, sure, they hear the big name brands, but I really want to dig into, like, how did you make those moves? What were some of the decision points? Was there anything that, you know, was a guiding light to how you decided to get to now vice president of marketing for the NBA?
Okay, so I will start out by saying that a lot of the moves I made have been deliberate in service of, like, I have this ultimate goal of just being a CMO. And not just like for the title, but to change the game, to show that you can be innovative, you can make bold moves, you can learn, you can be data focused, but you can also have results and you can be creative at the same time. Like, those are things I set out to prove. The nerd side of me, and we're going to get to like the background, you know, what I went through and how we got here, but I decided in the 10th grade that I wanted to be a CMO, which I know is a very uncommon story. But it's funny because what we're talking about today, like, it goes back to sports. So we actually had, I'm in high school, we had varsity tryouts. And I promise, like, this story's gonna make me sound so obnoxious, and I promise I've grown and I was taught a lesson. But one young lady came out to try, and I had already been on varsity, and, you know, I had my little I'm me, like, who's going, whatever. One young lady came out and she wasn't wearing Nikes, she wasn't wearing Jordans. Her game was okay, but I was in the locker room kind of talking trash with my teammates afterwards, not knowing that my assistant coach was in earshot. And I made some comment like, you know, you don't even take basketball seriously. You didn't put your Nikes on, you know? So my assistant coach overheard me. And after I ran 4 miles by myself for punishment for being an asshole, she came up to me and she's just like, she worked in marketing as her full-time job. And she was like, the only reason you believe like Nike or Jordan is superior, and I'm not saying they're not, they're a league sponsor, so I'm not saying they're not, but she was telling me why I believed it, is because a marketer told me so. Like, she said, there's no, like, you know, like, it's so funny with Adidas, that's if you're in soccer, you got 3 stripes. If you're in basketball, you have the swoosh. And she broke that down for me. And she was like, you need to go, another part of my punishment was to kind of go research marketing. And like, she was essentially like, nobody on this team is going to be a jerk like you were a jerk today. So go do the homework. Yeah. So I did the homework, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Because I had been straight, you know, sometimes some kids really knew what their end goal would be, or I'm going to be a doctor, things like that. And I just couldn't reconcile like my left brain and my right brain in terms of creativity, but structure and, you know, everything else. And I was like, oh, marketing kind of has that overlap of both. And so that's why I got interested in it in the first place. So we could walk through the background, but that's how it all started.
That is such a cool story, because I think a lot of people are struggling with what am I supposed to do when I grow up? Like, even as a 40-something, right? And so it's cool to hear that you took away this lesson from a punishment, but like, it's like kismet. It's kind of like, oh, this is the thing that's sparking my interest. You have since then taken all the steps to get to where you are today. And would you say that your path has been pretty traditional, or do you feel like I had to cobble some things together?
I'd say it's slightly untraditional, only because, and you said this in your setup at the beginning, like, a lot of people go into advertising, they stay in advertising, or they go into CPG, they stay in CPG. And what I started learning just in talking to people who are now mentors, or even just studying things in school, was that the best CMOs and the ones leading these huge organizations, they had experience across retail. They had experience across both client and agency side. And so while a lot of the VPs and a lot of people I looked up to and still look up to had really specific linear experiences, it was the CMOs of brands that I admired who had touched multiple facets of marketing. And I knew that I wanted to be like that. And so every time an opportunity came, every time a recruiter, a call came, whatever, I kept in mind, like, I have this tool on my belt, but do I have a hammer, but do I need a wrench? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So who are some CMOs that you admire?
Whew. I would be lying to you, and I don't know if you can hear my baby, but we'll talk about this and being on the road and wanting to spend time with people and pets when you're in sports, but we'll get to that. I would be lying if I said I remember specific names at this moment, because that CMO turnover is crazy.
Is it not?
I could say I admired this campaign and I admired the CMO, and then I'll go and Google it and they're like, so-and-so out of CMO. They just appointed so-and-so as Chief Growth Officer because that's the new title. And so that's the problem with even keeping up with people. I will say, though, there are a few leaders specifically. I'll shout out a young lady named Aaliyah, who leads the Sprite business at Coke, who is equal parts tight and analytical, but also creative. And so every time I am in the presence of someone like that, I try to take note and I try to learn. I try to even add their things to my repertoire and make sure that I'm absorbing and growing from there.
For sure. And shout out Aaliyah.
I mean, we all love.
Hey, girl, hey.
Right.
Another classically trained marketer. Well, what was it like working at the agency, though? Like, because you graduated from Howard with a degree in marketing and business, and you go work for this agency.
Knees.
Oh, yes. Were you trying to go to the WNBA?
I knew that wasn't in the cards for me. Like, the W is so competitive, and Howard is Division I, but it wasn't, I wasn't at UConn, Right. So I loved being a college athlete, studied marketing, obviously. The Career Center at Howard was amazing. And so Ogilvy and Mather was recruiting on campus for a rotational program. So I went to Ogilvy, rotated in 1 year through different facets of the agency. So I did planning, which is more like consumer insights. I did account on 2 different teams. So my first account team, ironically, was Coke on Global Fanta. I also did a rotation in Ogilvy Youth, which was an internal consulting practice that was being started up. And then I landed, and it was as funny as my final rotation in marketing strategy. Okay. And so that team was made up of a bunch of ex-consultants and ex-CPG people. And I had a blast. Just like everyone thought it was probably boring. You have to pull data, it's analytical. But it's, in my mind, it was almost like a puzzle every day where you get to crack the code of the why. Why are consumers doing this? Why are the sales trends this? Why? And then add that to the account team and the creative team's presentation to kind of beef up their story and their strategy. And that was super fun. I stuck with it. Was fortunate to have a couple promotions along the way, and then hit that ceiling where, everyone above me on that team and in that role had their MBA. And so that's where, I decided, I was like, hey, let me sit down and, you do a little Google search. I'm pretty certain, not to toot my own school's horn, but Kellogg is at the top of the charts for all things marketing. And so I'm a laser focused person, even with like me saying the CMO goal. Like, I see something, I focus, what do I have to do to get there? And it was the same thing with figuring out grad school as well.
So in grad school, did you know you wanted to work in marketing for entertainment or sports? Like, what was that thought process? Because business school makes you sit down and kind of really think about, okay, what do I want the next 10, 20 years to look like?
I knew for sure I wanted to go client side. I was tired of not being in the seat of the decision maker. That's, you kind of alluded to that earlier, like that was so important to me. And from what I knew in my time at Ogilvy, most of my clients were CPG. And from the outside looking in, the grass, it looked amazing and I wanted to be in that seat. And so I kind of went in with that intention, but I also, so I added a second major in international business, because I did think, especially coming from marketing strategy, I was really interested in global consumers themselves. Like the US, we have these kind of archetypes that every marketer, there's the soccer mom, there's this person, there's that person. And so I was really interested in also exploring new markets and new consumers. And that really excited me.
So you leave Kellogg and you go to Anheuser-Busch?
Yes.
Okay. So now you're selling beer.
Selling it and drinking it, girl. I was having a good time.
So with the beer and wine and spirits industry, did you feel like you had a lot of perks being a marketer? in beer?
More so than, and I had so I interned at Kraft when I was at Kellogg, great experience, but culturally, Anheuser-Busch was a way better fit for me. And it's all CPG, it's all the same frameworks, right? So you get the lessons, but the attachment to sports, even the culture just being a little bit more relaxed and there was a lot of millennial leadership, and this was in 2015. Like now, okay, we're all the millennials are middle managers, we're here. Yes. But in 2015, that was not the case. And I really respected that they like were promoting people, but that also gave a certain vibe, even in the office. So the perks were great. The free beer was great. The sporting events, everything. It was honestly a great experience. I only left because, like I said, I keep getting tempted by things that I'm trying to collect on my tool belt.
Right. Because you have a plan.
I have a plan. Like, we got things to do.
Yes. So listen, we're going to take a quick break. I really appreciate you kind of walking us through a little bit of the journey before landing in the NBA. When we get back, we're going to get to what we came to talk about. And I want you to give us the trill about working for the NBA when we get back from the break. All right, guys, we are back. Today we have Jasmine Lipford. She is the VP of Marketing for the National Basketball Association. I am so excited. I used to work with Jasmine at Coke. And now we have talked about how she got to where she is now. Now we're going to talk about what it's like to get your dream job. Because when I talked to you, this was your dream, to go work for the NBA. So now that we're here, what is it like living a dream?
So one thing I will kind of correct a little bit. I'm a VP of marketing. There are several. It's a big company. I almost say V. I feel like that's taking too much credit.
Mind.
I mean, V in terms of like, if we talking like Megan Thee Stallion V with the extra E, I'll take that.
Right.
Okay.
You are the Megan Thee Stallion at the NBA.
Hey, I mean, there is no taller Black girl than me, I don't think, in the company. So probably that's fitting and a huge compliment. So I'll take it. I'm in the job, and also I had some preconceived notions, right? Like we just talked about Bush, and so when I was a senior brand manager on Bush, I worked with NASCAR. You know, when I was at Coke with you, I was on Powerade, so working with the NCAA, working with McDonald's All-American, fall football, U.S. Women's National Team, like just so many sports programs. And so it's almost the same way that leaving advertising, I had a certain thought about what CPG was, and then leaving CPG sports marketing, I had a thought about what being on that side was. And so there are a few things that are a bit different from what I thought. I think there's some pros and cons, right? So on the pro
let's
side,
talk about the pros.
Let's start with I'll preface this with saying, like, this is not just my experience, but you know, I find my homegirl network everywhere. And so my friends at MLB, at the NFL, even MLS, and I met a woman who played basketball at Howard. She finished 10 years before me, and she leads marketing for DC's MLS team.
Oh, wow.
So, like, this is kind of the combined pro and con, if that makes sense. The access is real. So I will say, do you get take? Like, that's the first. If I meet someone, I tell them what I do. Do you get to? Yes, I get take. I'm at events. I'm there. I'm in the room. I might be working, though. So it's not, you know, I'm not just sitting there with my popcorn like the Cardi B gift. Like, I'm working, but it is having access to these events that I looked up to as a kid as being, you know, the ultimate basketball experience, or for my friends, football, baseball, whatever, is really cool. I'll also say I've met and worked with a lot of amazing people, and also like even former athletes. Like there are all-stars who are just NBA all-star, former all-stars who are just on my team who are my coworkers, and hearing from their experiences in like, you know, as I mentioned before, like I get really passionate talking about consumer insights, fan insights. I never was able to get in the mind of the athlete the way that I am now. And so it's really cool to even understand that side of things for sure. And then other than that, it's like, you know, I have to tomorrow, very, very early in the morning. I have to get on a plane. I'm going to Indianapolis for All-Star. We have a walkthrough just in our event space. And yeah, I have to get up early, yada, yada, yada. But even then, like, I'm going to pick a ball up off the rack and shoot around when we're done. Like, I still get to do that, which is awesome.
Yeah. So in that aspect, the 16-year-old Jasmine is like,
she's like, oh, girl, you did that. Yeah.
But now, the grown Jasmine, let's talk about the work.
I will say, and this actually is more of a pro, but it's related to the work. Because of the competitive nature, not only of the job, like it's competitive to get in, first of all. Then you get in and it's competitive to make a splash. And you're not selling, I'm not turning something over on a shelf like I was at Coke. I'm selling an idea. I need eyeballs. And I'm competing against even some of those friends I mentioned who, you know, there's an MLB game on or even a minor league game on at the same time as a NBA G League game on. And I need those eyeballs, right? And so because of that level of competition, there is a thirst for innovation, trying new things, testing, learning, quickly moving on. Everybody's very, very comfortable in that space. So I think that's a little bit of a pro and a con. Culturally in sports in general, I think it's very competitive. And that's kind of on the con side, but then the pro side is just the openness to innovation and to drive and to try new things. Very scrappy. And every time I think to myself, like, you know, I lead marketing for minor leagues. So I might think to myself, oh man, I wish I was, you know, at the NFL, their budgets are this. They're being scrappy over there too. And MLS, they're trying to build soccer fandom in a country where it hasn't been adopted yet. Like it's scrappy. I think there's also with sports in terms of the reality of it. I'm very type A. I'm an eldest daughter. I'm a Leo. I like a plan. Right. There is a lack of predictability that I've had to learn to live with. And if you think about what happened with sports during COVID, not just that, but how the landscape has changed because of NIL. Like leagues have lockouts. Players sometimes are just like, nah. And you're like, okay, well, my plan just throw it in the trash because the players aren't going to show up. And so there's that predictability that in CPG where you have so much structure, you kind of lay your head on the pillow at night and you're just thinking, you know, I have stages and gates tomorrow. A week from now, I'm going to have the revenue generation meeting. A week from then, and here's what I need to do. And it's just very much laid out.
Right.
No. Not in sport. Not on the league side, not on the team side.
Right. And I wouldn't expect it to be because, you know, I don't think that the NBA or even the NFL would ever compare themselves to a Procter & Gamble. Whereas
absolutely not, yeah.
All the companies we've worked for that are CPG companies, they've always looked to the P&G is the holy grail of marketing, right? Like that just is what it is. Like they invented it in a lot of ways. They started, you know, making commercials during soap operas, like, right? So I think a lot of different industries, because I too, you know, left Coke and went into a different industry, and you get hit with the realization that there's so much ambiguity and so little process compared to where we came from, which is an industry that has a lot of process, which is why if you need marketers, you should hire them from CPG. They're going to put a whole team together.
We can flex it either way, but even just starting from, okay, I'm trained with process. I know how it's supposed to go. Exactly. Even if I don't have the resources to put the process in place, I know it mentally. I agree completely. Yeah. We're plugging ourselves, but it's fine.
I mean, just the facts are the facts. Like you can say we plugging ourselves, and yes, that would be factual truth.
I mean, I will say though, to your point, Fee, like some of the strongest marketers I've ever worked with, regardless of which industry, if it was at Amazon, if it was in advertising, if it's now in sports, I'm like, where did you come from? It's a CPG org.
Yeah, because you have a way of framing things up. You can take things, and this is a superpower. People who can take complexity and distill it down. And I think when you get trained in these organizations, you're able to do that. So that's a gem right there. If you are looking to grow your career, figure out how you can flex that skill or how you can build that muscle to take things that are complex and break it down to simple parts and then explain it to people where it makes sense to them and they can go execute against it. And even if you're the executioner of a project, being able to explain your process to people in that way will make you rise and shine above so many people. But it's in the articulation of the simplification that you shine.
Yes.
And don't let people steal that, because you will break things down. I mean, I know firsthand that you have dealt with situations where you have leadership asking you, okay, Jasmine, how do we do this? And then they'll go into the rooms that they go into and they'll act like they came up with it.
Or even worse, they can't explain it and I'm not there to defend it. Like, I'd rather you take my idea and take credit than show up, not invite me to the meeting, and then misrepresent my work.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's a problem.
Yeah, because now you just fucking up.
It's also, so here's the thing, and this is something I think probably almost every marketing leader can probably relate to, is it can be so tough to, like, you get to a level in your career where you're no longer working for marketers, for other marketers, right? Mm-hmm. And so when the project leaves your desk or the representation of the project leaves your desk, you have to leave it to somebody else who's not able to speak to the consumer insight or not able. And it's not for lack of ability or intelligence. It's only just because this is what I do. I live, eat, sleep, breathe this.
It's the training.
Yeah, you just worry. I worry. I just worry when somebody else takes it out of my hand and walks away with it. It's like, it's tough.
Are you going to execute this the way I have laid out this vision?
And with the passion and the fire, like, I talk about marketing, like, it may as well be, my baby itself. Like, I love what I do.
Right.
And I don't know if you're bringing that, what I would bring to the table in those instances.
So let's dig into that. As a leader now, you've transitioned. You're no longer the person that's on set making sure that the campaign goes exactly as you planned it 360 wise. You're no longer, deep in the trenches as you were in CPG. Now you're having to oversee all the moving parts and make sure that they're all operating and executing in a way to bring forth your vision. What was that transition like?
So one, I am still kind of in the trenches. We have a very scrappy team. I always joke with people that I'm the head of marketing for the G League, but I'm the first head of marketing for the G League. So in building the team these last few years and building the process, putting the process in place, I'm on site, I'm writing briefs, everything. I think some of the bigger lessons just came in the form of recruiting and understanding not only the backgrounds I needed people to have, but the personality types that would be effective. That was so much more important, because it's like, if you have a certain personality type and they're willing to be coached and they're willing to roll their sleeves up, and also they're bringing their own knowledge and background to the table, you're golden. It doesn't matter that whether or not they've been on set, whether or not they've worked at a league. In my case, I've got people who they've done it all, so they're amazing. But there have been a couple people in and out, and you realize, are you as passionate about marketing? Passionate enough to, like I said, roll up your sleeves? Are you reading Ad Age? Are you, like, my very first year, one very jarring thing, and I'm recently reminded of it. I came into work and logged into work. It was the pandemic. And everyone kind of shoots the shit before or after meetings. And I was the only one talking about the Super Bowl ads. It was before I'd hired any other marketers. And everyone's talking about the game and even halftime. And I'm looking around on Zoom, just like, can I slack some? Nobody, I'm so accustomed to coming in on that Monday and we're talking about the ads.
Yeah.
And so that's something also that I just added even to the interviewing playbook for my team, of just like, tell me some creative you like recently. What do you think the brief was? I want to hear that fire, and so I can trust you with the brand that I'm trying to build.
Right. Yeah, no, it's funny. I had somebody visiting me who's also a marketer. We had worked together at Frito, and we were watching the Super Bowl, but we were watching the ads. Like, and we were talking about the ads, and I was like, oh, these ads are so trash. I'm very critical of Super Bowl ads as a marketer.
You need to do a Super Bowl ad review show. Like, please invite me back so we can do that. I will have so much fun.
Yeah, because listen, I think one thing I want people to take away from this conversation is that when you find something that you really like to do, and there's a career path there, like, go all in and stay sharp. Like, I've never known you not to be all about marketing. I never known you not to be all in it. I can't say the same for me. Like, I'm intrigued. I didn't look at all the ads. I didn't go back on Monday and go on YouTube like I used to do when I worked in CPG and literally watch all the ads again, trying to understand what works, what didn't work, and breaking it down, and then having the conversation with my manager and my coworkers and bringing ideas of, okay, well, here's what we could do, like, for this, and this quarter. All that is you sharpening yourself all the time. And so anybody who's watching this is trying to figure out, okay, I want to manage my career. Whatever you're doing, be it marketing, finance, operations, supply chain, HR, you need to constantly be sharpening the tools that you've collected in your tool belt. Because you can collect tools, like you had mentioned earlier, but don't let your old tools get rusty.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add an and to what you just said, which I agree with, is like, don't only sharpen. It would be so fun and so easy for me. Lennox agrees.
Yes, I'm glad Lennox agrees.
He's my assistant. He's my personal assistant over here. But it's so much more tempting to only focus on sharpening the marketing tool, because that's what gets me excited. That's what I love. Now I'm sharpening my, how do I conduct my performance reviews? Ooh. Am I properly managing my team's budget and finances? And those are the non-sexy parts of what we all have to do. But it's also, as you try to get to a leadership level, you can't ignore. Mm-hmm. You want to show up tight, not only for yourself or your team, but for everyone else who relies on you. Because at this point, every organization is so matrix and so cross-functional that if I miss a zero on my Excel sheet, I could accidentally blow something up. And you have to stay sharp on the non-sexy things as much as, I think people just think of sports or even marketing as being fun, sexy, creative, but it's those behind the scene things that honestly get you promoted, get you noticed, if your finance lead goes to your boss and says, everybody on your team, this person's the tightest when we have our finance meeting, that means something,
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you said that. We're going to take a quick break on that note. So everybody stay sharp. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, Jasmine, we're going to talk about the most important thing when we get back from the break. Most important thing. All right, we are back from the break, guys. We have had the privilege and honor to have Jasmine C. Lipford. She is one of the vice presidents of marketing over at the National Basketball Association, but she's over there killing the game, running the G League, making sure we watch G League games and stay engaged in basketball 365 days a year. That is what she is working on. And she got me because I really love basketball. But Jasmine, before we get out of here, I want to know, I called this segment the most important thing. But for you, my question is, if you could go back and talk to your about to graduate from Kellogg self, knowing everything you know, what advice would you give yourself about career?
I think if I could go back, regardless of if that 15-year-old we talked about before, the Howard basketball player, the Kellogg, whoever, I would tell her to take her time. And I say that because, like I mentioned earlier, type A, eldest daughter, yada, yada, yada. It's funny, my interview when I was at Amazon, one of their 12 principles is a bias for action. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that's me, because I don't sit there pussyfoot around decisions. If I have the data and I know what I want to do and I know what I want to happen, I hit go. I don't play. But there have been moves, as fun and sexy as the resume might sound externally, there have been moves where I might have still made the same move, but I didn't sit with self in silence and deliberate. I love working in sports. I wasn't prepared for the amount of travel. I wasn't mentally ready even just to be away from my dog for a week. I'm about to go to Indianapolis and he's here with me now, and he should be, like, I was supposed to take him to my parents earlier, but I'm trying to just soak up every moment because I've been gone. I was in Vegas last week for a sports marketing conference at the Super Bowl. Like, it's not just in this current role, but I just make so many moves. I'm so aggressive because I like to finish things out. I like to close things out. I like a scoreboard and a trophy. And that's probably the former athlete in me.
Right.
But taking a breath, sitting with something, asking people, or saying, instead of just answering off top and being committed to something in a meeting, just saying, that's a great question. Let me sit with it. Can I get back to you tomorrow? I did not start doing that until my late 30s. And it could have saved me so much grief. And even it would have given me so much sleep also, because now I'm scrambling, right? I think if I had just 30 seconds to talk to young me at any stage, it would be, you can calm down and you can take your time.
Listen, that's a word. You gonna bless somebody, because there's a lot of us, people are gonna read the hashtags and the captions and they're gonna be like, yes, I want to get into sports. I'm gonna watch this podcast. And I think they're gonna learn that on your career journey, you have that goal. It absolutely can happen, but you have to be cognizant and you have to understand what you're getting into, and that it's not all peaches and berries and creams and rainbows and sunshine. Peaches
and cream. Okay, Skittles throwback Super Bowl spot.
Right. It's work. Yeah. It's work. It's travel. It's a bit 24/7 at times, according on, you're at the Super Bowl. That's in Vegas. Vegas don't sleep. How much sleep did you get the past couple days?
I'm probably not even going to remember this entire conversation. Like, you got zombie Jasmine right now. I'm just blessed to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time, right? Thank you for taking the time, because I know that can't be easy. A question I want to ask you before we get out of here. I'm curious. You started at the NBA in the midst of the pandemic, right?
2021, February 21. Yeah.
Okay. And so did you have to go in a bubble?
I was not in the bubble. So when I started, the team I work with now, they were already in the bubble.
Okay.
And our season, so I started mid-February, and then the season ends at the end of March. And so my boss and I decided that it just didn't make sense to go through all that process.
Yeah.
So I was in Atlanta, just, working from home.
Okay.
But one thing, and I know you said that was your last question, but I do have something that I think is worth noting for people who want to go into sports.
Yes.
It does not have to be with a team. It does not have to be with a league. I had very fulfilling experiences with Anheuser-Busch and NASCAR, and with Coke and with Powerade and all the brands that we mentioned earlier with NCAA, NASCAR also, U.S. Women's National Team. So, I met Alex Morgan, and that was in my Powerade job. And so I think what I had in my head initially when I was younger was to go into sports, you have to work in sports, quote unquote. But there are so many partners that we work with every day who might be on the brand side, they might be on the media side, they might be a vendor. Those people work in sports too. And so if, for example, travel isn't your thing, there's an opportunity to do something different, but still work in sports. If analytics or linear viewership aren't what you want to care about, but you want to be on the creative side, go to an agency that has sports brands assigned to the client list, and so there's opportunity. It doesn't have to be solely focused on one element of sports.
Thank you for saying that. And
I'm just saying.
That is what we are here to deliver. That is the sermon, and that is the message. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us on the Trill MBA show. You have given us all the gems and nuggets. You've gave us a sermon about working in sports and how to manage your career in sports. Thank you for being an example, a light, and a beacon of hope. And I know you're probably like, okay, girl, but it's true. It's true. For people on the outside looking in and they're, wondering, thank you for demystifying some of the real about working for a professional sports league and understanding that you shouldn't limit yourself to just one aspect of sports if you want to work in sports. And I really appreciate you for that. So before we get out of here, guys, I just want to let you guys know, if you need some help or advice hit us up, ask@trillinba.com. You can ask us questions, send us listener letters. If you would like to work with me for coaching, I have some slots available. You can schedule time with me at trillinba.com/coaching. Jasmine, please let people know if they want to reach out to you. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, don't, because I get enough. I'm joking, but I do get a lot of cold calls. I'm kidding. Primary would be honestly LinkedIn. I'm Jasmine C. Lipford. I have a sister-in-law with the same first name, so that C is important to remember. And then my favorite platform still is Twitter. Her mama named her Twitter, so I'm still call her Twitter. I am at Jasmine, Jasmine CIE on Twitter, and would love to just keep engaging with whoever, whenever, wherever.
I appreciate you. Thank you for being a resource to our listeners. Guys, don't bombard Jasmine. She can't hire you, okay?
I really can't, y'all. I don't have a budget.
There are no jobs right now. The season is in the middle of the season, y'all. But be kind. And if I hear any of y'all acting crazy, I'm gonna come get you, okay? But no, listen, guys. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Check out all the links down below if you're watching on YouTube, or you can look at the show notes, and all of our information and contact information will be there. And if you have questions, comments, leave them in the comments of the show. We'll come back and look at them, and we'll answer them too. So with that said, until next time, guys, keep it trill.